I'm Emily Matthews, and this is my research presentation on Rosalind Franklin. Rosalind Franklin, born on July 25, 1920, was faced with discrimination from the moment she showed her academic capabilities as a child till far after she passed away in 1958. Rosalind proved her abilities from a young age and would go on to work alongside several notable scientists while also creating a name for herself in her short 38 years of life. In 1942 to 1946, Rosalind worked at the British Coal Utilisation Research Association. After leaving the BCURA, Rosalind began working at King's College London, studying DNA. Here, Franklin produced the notorious photograph 51 that would prove DNA structure while simultaneously causing a divide between Franklin and her partners. Franklin then moved to work at Birkbeck University in 1953, where she continued important work on viruses and RNA. She then passed away from ovarian cancer in 1958. March 8th is International Women's Day. It is also the day I started this assignment. Today I wanted to focus on and highlight not only Rosalind's scientific achievements, but the hardship she had to face her entire life to then be left in the shadows of her male partners. I started my selection process by watching a video of some of the world's most notorious female scientists. Rosalind's story stuck out to me because of the connection between the previous unit, the cell, and her story of discovering the DNA's double helix structure. I then chose to read through one article, 3 books, and Maurice Wilkins' memoir, The Third Man of the Double Helix, that went into depth about Rosalind's life before her studies, her relationships during her achievements, as well as how she was finally credited for her discoveries after being left in the shadows of her colleagues for so long. Rosalind had lots of experience, contributions, and accomplishments in her short 38 years of life, including assistant research at the BCURA, where she contributed many findings to the structure and chemical makeup of coal, where she was awarded her PhD. It was inspiring to see how quickly she succeeded in her studies in just a few years. Then studying DNA with the same diffusion X-ray techniques at King's College as she used at the BCURA, where she arguably made her most notable discovery of the DNA double helix structure. This discovery interested me for many reasons. DNA structure and its ability has always been an interest for me, as well as the fact that Rosalind was not initially recognized for her involvement of the discovery. After King's College, she continued her studies at Birkbeck University, studying TMV RNA alongside Nobel Prize winner Aaron Klug. At this point, she did not even realize how incredible of a discovery she had just made at King's College. When Rosalind was just a child, her parents knew she was academically gifted, and yet her father doubted her ability to overcome the troubles he knew she would face as a woman in a male-dominated field. He quote, he felt that a scientific career was unsuitable for a woman. In 1942, while working as an assistant researcher at the BCURA, Rosalind was recognized for her discoveries while studying the physical and chemical structure of coal, focusing on density, external and internal volume, as well as molecular sieve. Here, she was awarded her PhD. She carried out studies and experiments such as using helium to determine the internal volume of coal, comparing lignite to anthracite, the different formations of carbonized coals, and much more. After leaving the BCURA, she began working at King's College London in 1951 alongside Maurice Wilkins, studying DNA. During her time working alongside Wilkins, Watson, Francis, and Crick, other co-workers of hers at King's College, Rosalind would clash with the men a lot. This was a big challenge for Rosalind and made her time at King's unpleasant. It is obvious how her colleagues felt about her. In Faulkner's The Bold and the Brave describes James Watson's memoir. His memoir, The Double Helix, makes it obvious, even if Watson may not have intended it to, that the complicated, sophisticated, and cultured Rosalind was far beyond his immature experience, and that his only recourse was to demean her to the point where he had to be coerced into adding an epilogue in which he retracts his antagonistic description of her. Here is the notorious photograph 51 of the DNA structure's double helix that Rosalind and her student had taken. Yet Franklin still would succeed there by discovering and producing an X-ray image of DNA structure that you just seen that could clearly depict its double helix structure. This photograph 51 would prove the double helix structure, which played a vital role in creating the first correct double helix DNA model created by James Watson, Francis Crick, and Maurice Wilkins, Rosalind's peers from King's College. Watson, Francis, Crick, and Wilkins went on to win the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1962, which was 4 years after Rosalind passed away from ovarian cancer. Watson would claim that Rosalind denied the fact that the structure was a helix. He said that Rosalind was point-blank anti-helical, that she looked at the photograph 51 and refused to see it. But this was just a point of ignorance from Watson and the need to disagree with Rosalind. We know this because in Rosalind's notes, which were later discovered, she wrote, "Conclusion, big helix in several chains, phosphates on outside, phosphate to phosphate into helical bonds disrupted by water, phosphate links to available proteins." Meaning Rosalind described the photo being a double helix and had in fact accepted that. She may have been skeptical at first and did not want to jump straight into a model without more proof, but she specifically did note exactly what Watson's claimed she refused to believe. I was curious about Maurice Wilkins' memoir, mentioned in N. Faulkner's The Bold and the Brave, when I found it and read how Wilkins really felt about Rosalind and was shocked at how blatantly he disregarded Rosalind's intelligence, saying things like, "I did not want to be involved in asking her for anything," and "the new photograph was almost as extraordinary as it's being shown to me," referring to the fact that Wilkins being shown the picture meant that Rosalind was moving to work at Birkbeck College and would be passing her studies on to him, describing how thrilled he was that he had seen the picture due to the fact that she was leaving her studies behind and would no longer be working alongside Wilkins anymore. After all was said and done, it is clear that Rosalind's findings, photograph 51, made a huge impact on the discovery of the double helix and arguably couldn't have been done without her. As far as her impact aside from the double helix structure discovery, it is very clear that Rosalind's studies as well as her capabilities inspired many people outside of her King's College experience, scientists and non-scientists alike. Her colleague at Birkbeck College, Bernal, stated, "As a scientist, Miss Franklin was distinguished by extreme clarity and perfection in everything she undertook. She did nearly all this work with her own hands. At the same time, she proved to be an admirable director of a research team and inspired those who worked with her to reach the same high standards." There are many people who have advocated for Rosalind's impact and spoke to her inspiring character. From the photograph 51 leading to the discovery of the double helix structure, to Rosalind's story of overcoming the challenges she faced being an inspiration to many, it is hard to say which held the most importance. It is also hard to say whether Rosalind even understood how much she overcame due to the fact that the mindset of women never being as good as men was the norm. Understanding that in her field of work, Rosalind had no choice but to be surrounded by men. "When I become a nurse, I will be surrounded by women, strong, smart women who went through school to help and care for others and will understand me just like I understand them." Rosalind's story inspires me on a personal level because I realized if she can achieve all those things, prove the men who thought less of her wrong, and do it all for what she loved, then I can achieve my goals without all those barriers in my life. Of course, everyone has struggles, but the prejudice women had to face in those times was unfathomable. In comparison to the struggles I face, it inspires me to do more. Rosalind Franklin was a very gifted woman, showing her capabilities from a very young age, where it was evident from the beginning that she would be held back and doubted. Despite this, she persevered and continued to flourish in many different studies. She made meaningful discoveries while studying coal, studying DNA structure, and studying viruses as well. Although she may have clashed with some other personalities along the way, she did not let it hold her back and was very successful. Thankfully, she would eventually be recognized for her accomplishments, rightfully so, even if she tragically never got to see it in her lifetime. Rosalind can and has been an inspiration to many people for many reasons. To scientists, proving partnership and teamwork is essential and meaningful, while being acknowledged is equally important. To women, proving no matter the inequalities we may face, we will always be bigger than the prejudice we face. And to anyone who has ever been doubted or seen as less than, if you have a passion for what you do, you will succeed just as Rosalind has. Sources and references.